Hello and welcome to Inside News with Dale Matthews, Mike Jones, and Mike Jones. Hello, is Mike Jones there?
Yeah, I'm here. And, I was probably supposed to give you the hi sign when you were live on the air. But unfortunately, I was momentarily distracted to the side and I didn't realize, oh, yes, we're on the air. Yes, we are on
Yes,
the air.
yes, we're on the air. There used to be a Bink. I miss my Bink. Yes,
Yeah.
well, okay.
Mrs. Binky.
Yes, I do. We're continuing on with the premise from the current budget committee members, except for one. Boy, they're not happy with her. That no solutions other than super high taxes will even be considered. We've already pushed Cheryl Walker out. She's out. We've all but said goodbye to Keith Eck. Simon Ayer thinks he's going to continue traveling around the state for a couple of years on our dime. These guys are done, but they will get their way on the most important committee of all committees because they will not even consider any solutions. So here we go.
The standpoint that the decision to take money from the ending fund balance within Public Works and put it into the Roads and Bridges Fund, so it wasn't necessarily in their budget as their discretion,
No, it wasn't.
Was a proposal I made to the Budget Committee, I believe, 2 years ago, with the idea that we are establishing a Roads and Bridges Fund with eventually an adequate reserve. So if there's somebody to blame about how that is larger than it's ever been, that's my fault, because I wanted to put money away specifically and have it labeled as such that the planning department Public Works had to come to the board and budget committee in order to appropriate those dollars. I think that's an important move. The other thing that I wanted to say is that
how come it's appropriate to have a roads and bridges fund, a layaway for that, but it's not appropriate at all to have some sort of a layaway fund in case the sheriff happens to get into trouble somehow? I distinctly remember this being a law enforcement fiscal emergency.
That's correct. As anybody here that's lived here for a while, maybe you know, and you could send us an email, and I'll put up Mike, who's going to put up our email address so that you can tell him, Mike, many times for the last 25 to 30 years, I've heard county commissioners talk about the emergency in roads funding. Emergency. We were almost going to call the governor down here because of the emergency and roads funding. And this is just a continuation of that long-standing policy.
I'm sorry. I stand corrected then.
Anybody that thinks that that's the truth, send us an email.
I hate looking like an idiot, especially when it's archived on YouTube for all time, So I apologize for getting that wrong.
No, it never happened. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And they're putting us at danger. Something occurred to me the other day, and I was talking with Mike about it. I fly in airplanes. You guys already know that. I'm a search and rescue guy. I'm a captain in the Air Force Auxiliary. And one of the things you may remember from a long time ago, an old black and white movie, here is Lucky Lindy, flying across the Atlantic all by himself. And at one point, he was starting to spiral down. He was tired. He didn't get any sleep. He was starting to spiral down to the ocean, and he couldn't figure out why. Well, it was because the tanks, the aviation fuel tanks, I'm going to get there. Just be patient with me. The aviation fuel tanks, they have to be balanced. Yeah. Because unlike a car in an airplane, if they're not balanced, it's going to throw you out of whack.
And if your wing is tipping to one side, you're in a turn. Essentially.
And that's not a good thing. Yes, that's right. Not a good thing, especially when you're all by yourself.
Spin is nothing but a perpetual turn to one direction.
That's right. And he was spiraling down toward the ocean and couldn't figure out why, because he was too tired. Okay. Yeah. I can identify with a little bit of that. So,
we used to run because when I bought my aircraft, thank God I got rid of my aircraft. But when I bought a Cherokee 180 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we flew it out here, and every 30 minutes you got to switch tanks and take some from one, and you keep going so that you don't get out of balance, and you
Well, you
for
guys
obvious reasons.
probably
Anyway,
know
continue.
where I'm leading with this, and that is that we're one of the counties, there are not too many of them, that chip in 20% of the budget for the district attorney. We don't have to. The state is supposed to pay it. The district attorney is elected by the state. He's not elected by us. It is a state position. He works for the state. The district attorney works for the state. And so 20% of the budget for the district attorney's office comes from general funds. It doesn't have to. And with a county that's really tight, why are we spending 20% when we don't have to, when the state is supposed to fully fund the district attorney's office?
Yeah, that's odd.
Now, you may say, well, we need a functioning district attorney. I agree with you, of course. But at a time when the state could take on any other, they've got a little more money than we do, and when they could take on any other of their responsibilities, like unfunded mandates and paying for the district attorney's office, he's not a county employee. Why in the world are we doing that? So what we've heard from you tell us, Mike, what have we heard from the district attorney about funding for his office? Where is that at the moment?
He's got plenty. They're fully funded. They're fully staffed, and everything's hunky dory. Now, granted, this is for this particular time frame that we're talking about, and apparently they have secured some other grant funding that helps out with that. But I'm a little confused because if you hear the commissioners talk about it, oh sure, yes, we pitch in for the DA's. To funding the DA somehow. I'm not sure if it's his salary or if it's
for the office. It's for the office.
Okay. But apparently, and I may be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong about this, but we're the only county in the state that does this.
No, we're not the only one, but we're one of very few. And when I went to talk,
one of very few,
he insisted on having his assistant there with him, the new DA, and boy, was that a tense conversation. I didn't say anything to him. I just was, well, I'd just like to ask you a question. Okay. And I said, well, what about this? And his assistant was like, well, why would you ask that? Because it's about money, the DA, and nobody, oh, well, now you don't want a DA. No. But it's like that thing I was boring you with about the airplane. If you've got fully gassed up here and you don't hear, what are you doing to yourself? And so is it possible that instead, and you could say, well, yank the 20 right now. There's plenty of people would say that. How about cut that in half? Okay, that's not the final answer, but cut that in half. Give part of that. How many legs are to the stool? Let's see. There's we've got law enforcement.
Depends on who you talk to.
Right, and what kind of stool it is. A child stool is great.
Law enforcement, the jail, and then the DA's office, right?
Right, those three. Three-legged stool. Now, if you find that now we've got $1 million, that $1 million is another $1 million, has now come almost $1 million from Grants Pass City. Okay, that's better. It's not perfect. Not perfect. We already know that. We've known that for a decade. And nowhere near enough, totally unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable for the sheriff. Okay. And fully funded DA. Is it possible to do the same kind of cost-benefit analysis that everybody else in the county has done and said, well, let's give more to this and less to that? Less to that? We can't give less to that. Sure you can.
Yeah. Listen, I'm all for querying the current board, and we'll go ahead and query the entire budget committee there, and whatever they're in the majority of being for or against. I say we use the Costanza method and go exactly the opposite.
Right, I knew it was coming. Absolutely.
Yeah,
but of course you want everybody at the table to have pizza. We want everybody to have pizza. But if for some reason they bring, like triple whatever to this kid and none to that kid, none, well, I don't want to share. Hey, we need to be sure that we're balanced. It's not going to be a balanced meal no matter what. But I mean, what the heck? But we know why, because we've been told why.
Of course.
Why do the commissioners think of this thing with giving part of the funding from the county to the DA? They just blurted it out. Remember that, Mike? Why would they want that?
Well, I mean, as I see it, they see this as their money.
Well, it's a get out of jail free card too. Because when I went to the DA, the old DA, and I said, now, are you going to follow through with this thing and do any investigation at all into Simon Hare and slamming the door in the face of the police officer that was brought over from Jackson County? And there's this stuff with the drunk driving and all the stuff.
I see where you're going. Yeah, it's the 20% insurance policy that your DA won't. And it may not have been set up for that purpose, but it certainly serves that purpose. That the Board of Commissioners is responsible for 20% more money coming to the DA than would come to the DA if they weren't deciding that. So
he told me flat out. Now we're talking about the previous DA, that I'm not going to be pursuing this. I get 20% of my funding from the county, from the commission.
Well, okay, there you go.
Well, there's your answer. Now, this new guy, I asked him that, but boy, he didn't want to answer that. And his assistant was insisting that he not answer that. But first of all, okay, leave aside, that may be a conspiracy theory, but it might be right. I mean, at least I was told that it was right by the old DA. When you've got full funding for one and nowhere near enough for the other, what's the common sense solution to that?
Right. Yeah. You rob from Peter to pay Paul?
That's what they would say. That is what they would say. But
well,
you could say kind of like caromming. I use this analogy, and it's probably a bad one. Like playing pool, and you bounce the ball off the side, and then the other one goes in the pocket. Okay, so it's a two-step thing with the DA, with keeping us safe, and you got to have that. And it's a one-step thing with the jail. It is a half-step thing, or should be, with the sheriff. If you're not picking up anybody, honestly, it doesn't matter. If you're picking up nobody, the DA has nothing to do. Okay. No wonder he's fully funded, because they've got less work to do according to them. And so each of the three legs of the stool has to be solid or it's going to fall over. Right. What am I missing?
Yes. I don't
know.
No,
I don't like the idea of depriving some government of the money. Well, actually, I kind of do like that. But okay, I'm not suggesting that everybody's legs ought to be cut out from under them. But why? Over the past many years, do we continue paying 20% when we don't have to?
Right.
Let's listen to more of Simon's reasons for everything. Come on, Simon.
And would I do that again? I probably wouldn't. I just didn't feel that was an adequate. It didn't build the bridge to anywhere. And
it didn't build it to a levee.
The shortfall that we're going to experience in 2017 is so significant that robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Oh my God!
I was in the meeting at the governor's office when there were 9 crisis counties in the room. Grant County was one of those. It was included in the legislation 4175 to provide these counties with very large reserves the opportunity when their public safety departments, and specifically the sheriff, was negatively impacted. I do know from talking to Curry County that they're readdressing the use of their road reserves for patrolls. They're not doing that.
So what?
As regularly.
And besides that, wait a minute, Simon.
Does that mean we have to do everything that everybody else does? That comes up so commonly in these things. Well, so-and-so's do it. Well, so what?
Well, we got to pay someone to pour the wine, so they'll be impressed with us. That was the reason why they wanted that. We got to keep going. We got to have a bigger table, so they'll be impressed. Why we're just as important as they are. You know what? Get over yourself. And I don't like the idea that this kind of attitude is spreading. They're talking to each other. I don't want Simon talking with those guys, convincing them that doing the smart thing is the stupid thing. Don't do that. We got to stop this guy from. I mean, he is an elected commissioner, okay, but it doesn't mean he has to represent us at all these meetings. And it's spreading. It's just, you can see it spreading from the city council. Well, the people don't like it. Well, let's do it anyway. To the county commissioners, now it's spreading from the county. It's our responsibility, in my opinion, to put it into the contagion. It's a pretty strong statement, but yeah, I mean
that's entirely adequate, I think.
Well,
a description that is.
Just think of what Grants Pass City almost did to us, to the whole state. If that city sales tax had failed 41 to 59, there's lots of other cities that would have attempted that. The reason it was really important that it failed 80 to 20 was to put an
extra spike in the car in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Boy, that if it had been any better for the proponents of that, that would be bad. And it's bad already, because when you think about Grants Pass City, I mean, it's not true that people all over the world have no memory of anything ever. I mean, they count on this happening here. We're your record keepers about this. If you say, Dale, 3 years ago, yeah, we got that. We've got that footage. We know, and I remember it, and I can quote it most of the time. Big deal, blah, blah. But my point is that we need to know what it is, because Grants Pass could have permanent damage, and deserves to have so, from the city council, because why would someone take a business here when at any time they want to, the Grants Pass city councilors, no matter which goofy people are in there, suggest that kind of thing again? And Dan DeYoung says, well, I would consider it again. And Darren Fowler said, well, if we were in trouble, I'd let it go a couple more years. And Roy Lindsay, are you kidding me? I mean, this guy's a fanatic on this subject. And so why would anybody take the risk of moving a business here? Okay. Anybody from out of town, stop watching the show now. Thank you. Why would they take the risk of moving here when the city attorney says anytime the city likes, anytime they like, they can revoke your vote? What?
Yeah.
Why would anybody live in a place like that? We're doing it. We're staying because this is where the fight is. That's dramatic, Dale. But let's hear more drama from Simon Hare, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. What's the matter with you guys?
It is a loan.
Robbing from it.
Like with us, with not having the capacity to pay that back. So not to use up all of the time, I think this is something that's been deliberated. I think we either need to table this motion till an opportunity for the sheriff to address what he would consider as the appropriate, whether he
we can hopefully forget about it.
This motion,
yep,
or not.
Now, this motion he's talking about was from Peggy Goodwin, who had suggested that we use some money in order to bolster the emergency situation with the sheriff. The sheriff had already made an anemic presentation, like, "Oh, I would like to keep things the same." They had already given instructions to the department that they were told to submit a status quo budget, right? And so the odds were stacked from the beginning. And you've heard what the other members of the committee say, they're not going to listen to any of it. And they're certainly not going to listen to us. Not going to listen to us anymore, because we're not doing what they want us to do.
Well, can I address one thing here? And this is something that Simon's talking about right now when he's talking about the funding of taking money from the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund and using it for road patrols. He's talking about $425,000 that he was a member voting, saying yes to that, but they did it as a loan. He continually brings up the fact, well, they haven't paid it back yet, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to pay it back. Stop wanting it to be paid back. Nobody cares. You're the only one who cares that the sheriff's department hasn't found some way to make money at a bake sale or something so they can pay back the $425,000. They don't expect to ever pay it back. No one ever expects them to pay it back. And that is stupid. Stop saying it.
And in addition to that, it didn't have to be set up as a loan. And the sheriff at the time said, I won't be able to pay this back. And everyone went,
right. I'm going to pay you back. Thank you.
That again. The sheriff at the time said, I won't be able to pay this back. Everybody knew that. It wasn't a mystery.
Stupid.
So why is he acting like he's been betrayed by himself?
Well, because
that we intuited it. We were told they weren't going to be able to pay it back. He set it up.
It serves his purpose, though. Well, why would I loan those deadbeats money again? They shafted me the first time. I mean, that's what he's doing. It's so dumb. Nobody cares about that money.
The other thing is that it's almost hilarious, although it's kind of worse than that. It was a bridge to nowhere, he says. Okay, if it was a bridge to somewhere, what would it be a bridge to?
Right.
Another levy. That's all that they need every time.
And the other thing, here's another vacuous argument where they say, well, the shortfall would be really big, so $1.5 million, that doesn't even touch it. So don't even bother giving them $1.5 million.
That's what this thing is over my shoulder. That's why I put this over here. No solutions will be considered.
Yeah, moronic.
There are things we can do about this. Now, about the Grants Pass City Council and its influence on the county commissioners, we just need people who don't have feet of clay. We need people who are going to stick to their guns. Well, they're not going to be easily swayed by the kind of goofiness. We're not going to replace everybody, all the backward thinkers over at the city council. That's not going to happen, buddy. People don't want to run for city council. We'll be lucky if we get rid of the mayor, which is a major impediment to this. We're not going to say goodbye to Roy Lindsay, for example. That's not going to happen. So the only thing that can happen is people sometimes think that you can push for change. Actually, it's more like you shake a little bit and it ranges. This is not nice. Sorry, guys. And it raises the ambient temperature in the room by 1 degree. Okay? It's not that you can get things done immediately. There are a lot of things that two fiscal conservatives, are you kidding me, could do, including on this very important budget committee. That can be done, and that's immediate. But the idea that we're going to reform this whole town and this whole area in Southern Oregon, we can start. We need to start somewhere. This is why they're fighting so hard, because the beginning of a solution, just the beginning of a solution, is the end for them.
Right. It's the end of their emergency.
Right. It will be. It already is that.
And someday Simon will finish the sentence he has begun.
Well, we can always hope.
Last thing that I would say relative to that is that in my conversations with the sheriff, he expresses that it's anywhere between 6, 9, almost a year before you find a deputy ready to perform road patrol duties if they have to be trained.
Again.
And somebody who comes
another
in...
tired argument.
We've appropriated $1.5 million to be used over 2 years or so. How likely are they to come and go through that process knowing full well that halfway through, after they're trained, they have 1 more year?
Now, okay, we've heard the commissioners say nothing against the idea of this 5-cent levy. I'm not going to vote for it because I believe we need the 5 cents from the schools. Nothing against that because it's a levy. Well, of course, then it's perfect. So the sheriff has said nothing about the idea that they're going to spend about $200,000 if they get that money, and that's going to get them 6 part-time. But that's only part-time. No solutions will be considered. What again? Okay. Now, he already knows that they're trained. They're trained already. and he's going to be running them through his office, and they will be armed, and they'll be protecting children. That's the idea. So that whole thing just flies in the face of what he just said. They keep saying the same thing again and again, but it's simply not true. Now, you might even be able to get the sheriff, I was talking about this last night, to say, well, that's all true. You know, sheriff, snap out of it, buddy. I mean, we got to come up with some solutions.
It's really dumb. You know what? I would be willing to bet that if you put a levy on the ballot that ultimately only gleaned $1.5 million a year, they would not say that that is nothing. They would take it. If they knew it would pass and it was, you know, they could put it on the ballot and make it pass, they would do it. You know, they would.
Absolutely.
And they wouldn't be saying it was a bridge to nowhere. They would still say that it wasn't enough, because they've done that even when they're talking about $1.49 per thousand or something.
Right. They said it wasn't enough. And they were willing to consider this thing. And you know that Cheryl hasn't given up on this idea of having the governor come down here. And that was just a year and a half. Well, if it's going to take 9 months to a year, borrowing from Jake to pay, you know, Jack or whatever, well, that's still just 9 months to a year, and then a couple of extra, and nobody would ever do it. But this was their idea.
Yeah, and as I have said many times, this is not about whether or not they can do something. It's about the will to act, and you know, so. And so,
well, and how much fun would it be to go into one of these meetings? I've been doing with this idea. I'm not going to do it, but go into one of these meetings and say, okay, you know, speaking on behalf of everybody. Yeah, right, Dale. We're all going to support a levy now. Are you happy? Yeah. Okay. And it's going to be as much as you like. Yes. And we're going to, you know, it's going to be forever. And then you can ratchet it up twice as much each year. Yes. Yes. And then say, April Fools. We're not going to do that. What's the matter with you? First of all, we're not going to do it because the people have made it clear that's not what they want to do. Well, they should want to do it, but they don't. Well, they should, but they don't. You know that already. That's why you insist on ignoring what we're saying. You know that we don't want those stupid orange signs posted up, those double-size orange signs pasted all over town. You already know we don't want it. Grants Pass City Council, you know we don't. And you know that we've told you crystal clear we don't want to pay more for this. We want to be sure we know where the money's going now. The money, where is it going? Yeah, the money, where's it going? This is why they have to be against you. They have to be against Mike. They have to be against me, because we're going to find out. We're going to find out where that money's been going. And you think there's any possibility? Sure, there's a possibility. Some of it's quite right. But you think there's a possibility that some of it's been kind of like, follow the money, guys, follow the money. This is no joke. They're putting us in danger.
That's one of my concerns with this. Isn't road patrols, people need to understand it isn't something you can turn on and off. It takes a significant amount of time to ramp up, to train new people, and that's a big consideration to me in appropriating these dollars. So
what if we'd started several years ago?
Time for the sheriff to address this, or is the purview of the board to move on this right now? You can call the question if that's okay.
Okay, and another. Simon is very fond of saying, over the years, you've watched him, you know he said this, well, the best time to start something was yesterday. Quite right. And the second best time is today. Quite right. So we're not even going to try. We're not even going to start. Nothing.
Yeah, you know what, this is another one of the tired arguments they make, that you know, they make all these arguments about, well, it takes so much time to train these people. They wouldn't come here if they didn't see some sort of permanence, all these sort of things. Margaret Goodwin was not suggesting that they take this money and blow it all out in 1 year. She wasn't even suggesting that they spend it any time in the near future. It was to be put into reserve. She's not even talking about hiring extra or other deputies at all. All she's trying to do is say, listen, you got $1.5 million here that you can take and put in this fund and use it if you need to in the case of this massive budget shortfall, which you guys have all forecasted with great hysteria. So,
and the thing to watch here, Simon was elected as head of the budget committee. Never again. And depending on how this next vote turns out, he'll end up being the chair of the board of commissioners. Never again. Okay. So that's very important that you think about who has experience and who doesn't, who wants to have experience and who just doesn't know what they're doing. It's going to take 9 months to a year to train those people.
Oh,
they
listen,
don't know what's happening.
Hang on just 1 minute.
Yes, sir.
I don't have any problem with the new commissioners fumbling over procedure. This is not an issue for me. If they're messing it up, if you go in there, you have a cheat sheet that tells you how to do the thing. Make yourself an itinerary, sort of, boom, boom, boom. This is what we're doing. This is not a hard thing to do. And I don't care if they mess up procedure. I say, even if you got the greenest of greenhorns in there, you can let those guys run the meeting over Simon Hare. I think I would hope to God that whoever gets in there is strong enough to resist Simon's verbosity.
That's the question. And so what I was going to say here is this guy has been elected as head of the budget committee by the other budget members, as well as the stacked deck. But of course, they picked him. Okay. Even Margaret Goodwin did not want to be the chair. She was nominated to be the chair and didn't want to be the chair. There's your problem. I love Margaret, but she didn't want to be the chair. Okay. So he's now saying, he just made his statement. What you should do next is say, does anyone else have any statements? He's just called the question. And those of you with parliamentary mind know what that means. Let's stop discussion now that I've said what I want to say. Now that he has, and let's vote. Called the question.
Ms.
Mr.
Walker,
Chair,
you had a hand.
thank you. As liaison to the sheriff, I've had these conversations with him in regards to an additional $1 million or $1.5 million, whatever. The problem with that is, as you just mentioned, is that if you get the additional money and then you go out to hire experienced officers that you don't have to train, they don't want to come here because they know they only have 1 year. They're not coming. So
She said this
if
before.
you hire new officers that you have to train, it takes, as you say, 6 to 9 months to train them, and then they usually have to serve another 90 days riding along and learning the area. So you've invested a year of your money into them, and then they're going to go to work somewhere else because we don't have money the following year.
The school levy, if it passes, says that's just simply not true.
Yeah, well, but I believe that Margaret interjects here at some point in the very near future to correct this misconception that Cheryl is perpetuating here. That Simon started and Cheryl is continuing to push. I believe that she checks it at some point in the.
If we forget that, yes, it's because of me.
Yes, that's right.
Idea how we're going to fund into that second year at this point. We may not have any money at all. We may end up laying off already the people we have. So
we're going to lay you off, Cheryl.
It's not a solution to the problem. It actually creates an additional
yes, of course.
There are no
misconception
solutions.
in the eyes of the public that we've given more money to public safety, but we won't have people on the road until they're trained. And then when they're trained, we would have to let them go with just $1 million in a year. So I would call the question. Mr. Chair.
It's already been called.
Oh, here we go.
I was going to call the question. I didn't know anybody else wanted to speak. I thought.
If you don't mind,
No, I don't mind.
Commissioner
I don't
Heck
mind. I
hasn't
withdraw
spoken
that.
yet. I'd like for him, and then Peggy. But we
You
gotta
called
get
the question
Yes.
twice.
Question.
Oh,
and
man.
We'll go to that, which is an undebatable motion, and go straight to the element at hand.
He doesn't want Margaret speaking.
The problem stares at us, and all we can really do is stare back, because $1 million does not solve.
Oh, that was worth it. That was worth it.
Oh, man, do I love that quote. What was that?
Well,
the problem
it's like
stares at us, and all we can do is stare back.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, what a waste of time. And Simon knows it's a waste of time. He's hoping that Peggy will cease having interest in interjecting, and it'll all be over, and he won't have to listen to her again.
Intellectual contribution to this debate. The problem stares at us, and all we can do is stare back.
Honey, can you get my bubble bath?
Wait, Keith, you are not at home in the bathtub.
Yes.
All we can do is stare back.
Simply prolongs the inevitable dealing with what needs to be done. And I don't like the idea of, it's not just a matter of robbing Peter to pay Paul. I mean, you're killing Peter to take Paul for a period of an unknown period of time, and then he's going to expire. It doesn't address the issues, and it cripples, and severely cripples.
Okay, I hate these guys.
Not free, but
say it again, Mike. Sorry, bud.
I said I hate these guys now. I mean, all three of them, all of our commissioners have spoken up. I hate these guys. These guys are these are the worst. These people, they're so bad to be in
up with
here.
3 lemons. You can end up with those one-armed bandits and there's 3. That's not always the case. I've been in a lot of. There's usually one that's like Dave Toller. I mean, what a loser this guy was. But it's not all 3 of them at once. I guess it eventually had to happen. You're not just injuring him. You're killing him. You're killing him to take his money.
Come on.
Oh man! Oh, this has got to be one of the best budget meetings ever.
Yes, but we're getting to the good part.
Here we go. We're going to get to the good part.
At least, rather than trying to address the issue, and I think as a county,
you mean with $1.5 million
issue, and we have been fortunate enough. We come up to this wall, and then there is some mysterious development of monies, people will say. And then we don't have to address it. And instead of addressing the issue, we just simply die one little stroke more. We don't solve any problems.
Maybe that's
we just have a little less money. And that little less money now is coming to a conclusion at the end of 2016, the fiscal year 16, 17. And I think it would be once we, as the citizens, once we understand that this truly is the end, I think we as a people will be more than the provide solutions.
Okay, I shouldn't have said that about Keith. I mean, that was ungenerous of me, but this is so frustrating. Really, this truly is this time, Mike. It's truly, absolutely, really the end.
Yeah.
It certainly is not a jolly situation. But wait till we have Raymond Smith on tomorrow, talking to you about some of the responses that he's gotten to these letters that we're sending out.
Mm-hmm.
The whole audience will go, "Oh, really? Yeah, boy." But you see, you're gonna have to have a reason to watch tomorrow night. Hopefully, well, this is pretty entertaining for me, anyway.
That will be more than amenable to all of us. And as was mentioned, that we can, as the budget committee or as the commissioners, we can, if need be, in January, February, or whatever, take and move money. It's not a fixed, done deal completed today as a result of this budget committee. I just don't like the idea of moving it now when we're still when 2 departments are very, very weak and making one department a little stronger and one really weak. So I'm not in favor of it.
Peggy?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to point out that my motion was not to hire any new deputies. My motion was to put money in reserves so that we can retain the deputies that we already have instead of having to lay them off when the funding runs out.
Good clarification. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good
That's it?
clarification. I have no logical answer.
Ms. Walker?
No.
Mr. Welch?
No.
Mr. Heck?
No.
Mr. Brumback?
No.
Mr. Hill?
No, motion fails 5-1.
Yeah, the entire county fails. What I said to them at their first budget meeting, I'm not going to go to any more of these budget meetings, not with these guys. As I said, you're in the sunshine now. Your time as budget committee members is almost over with one exception. So you might as well just enjoy yourselves because you won't be here next year.
Well, hey, before we go, I wanted to show something that I got in the mail today. This was very interesting. I got several pieces of mail, bills and things like that. But then I got my ballots, my ballot and my wife's ballot. And then look what else came in the mail is a little a double-sided mailer from Lily Morgan.
That's expensive.
Yeah, these things have to cost $0.25 a piece. If they didn't cost that, I would be really shocked because they're both sides. They're in color. It's it's card stock.
Whoa.
So that I think is pretty expensive. That's a huge outlay of money. This gal is trying to get over 50% in the primary. She doesn't want, because I know that they don't want to spend a whole bunch more money, come November. I can't imagine that this is not a shot to try and get over 50%. Because this is coming with the ballot, not in the same envelope. Let's be clear about that because there's already been that misunderstanding. This is, it just came with the rest of the mail and serendipitous timing. I doubt it. I think this is planned.
Okay, all right. So, Mike, we do analysis here on this show. That's part of what we do. And one of the things that I'm not running against this lady. What do you think are the potential risks and benefits? We're not going to be tough on anybody about a city council member that was there for the planning of every bad decision this city council has ever made in recent history. What do you think are the pluses, the potential pluses or minuses for the county? That's kind of setting it up badly. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, generally the city, the people on the city council, generally speaking, are their decision-making process is counter to mine. Now, Lily Morgan did abstain. She didn't abstain. She said no to the on the sales tax things. She was outnumbered by the rest of the.
She was there for the planning part of it, but okay, yes.
Okay, yeah, I really didn't see much of that. But what I'm saying is that there's a lot of money being thrown at this. And, I mean, this isn't her money. So I think using just this example as an occasion, you ought to look into everybody's funding. And I don't know if Jim Rafferty over there at We're for a Constitutional Government he usually has, he has a record of who has paid what to whom. And I think it's beneficial to go look into that to see who's paying for all this advertising because that's a huge outlay. And I'm not targeting Lily Morgan specifically. What I'm saying is that there are a lot of these candidates that I've noticed that some have had very flashy ads. If you go through the sneak preview there, you look and you see, some people got a half-page ad. I think Nathaniel Duarte had a full color half-page ad in there. Lily had something similar to that. Dan DeYoung had something similar to that. Tony Webb had a half-page ad in there. So I think it's beneficial that everybody should know who in our community wants to have these people represented.
Right. That's the point. That is the big point because you know that I like Lily. And, there's various permutations of how this thing may turn out. When you look at the main people that are supporting Lily Morgan, and it doesn't mean this is exactly who she is, what do they expect and who are they? They're all the super pro-levy people. All the biggest ones are the pro-levy people. Now, if that's the case, she could say all day, fine, say it. Well, that doesn't mean that I support that. But you always did in the past. You're already working for the county, still working for the county. You've indicated that, maybe that's not the way to go. But why are the people who are so super pro-levy super pro-you?
Yeah.